Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
So far, like a terrible driver.
No, we're good. So give me your position.
Okay, so
now we're finally understanding why you didn't like soul prints.
Exactly.
But why didn't you like your girlfriend? Because she didn't like soul prints.
Well, because she was into this Kabbalistic nonsense.
I got you. Okay, now we're getting to the core of this one here. Okay. What was her name?
I won't say it.
What's that? I'm sorry.
For her sake, that's
okay.
fine.
Can we just drink
Yeah,
whatever's good in her?
Yeah.
Whatever's good in her.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
To what's good in her.
Thank you so much. Oh, what a beautiful flower.
Thank you very, very much.
So fragrant.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm more of an empiricist.
Okay.
And so I would argue that human beings basically tend towards moral depravity unless there's something special going on in their life to point them towards the transcendent. And the empirical basis for my belief is human history, say the 20th century, where there are tens of millions of people, innocent people were murdered. But basically every army in the world, when it can, it rapes. It rapes en masse. About the only army that doesn't is Israel. And maybe the American one doesn't. But pretty much every other army, when it has defenseless women under its power, it rapes en masse. Because it can. And so I would argue to you that all men, unless there's something extraordinarily good going on in them, or they're timid, all men are basically rapists. And the thing that keeps most men from raping is not because in their deep place they're good. It's because they're afraid of getting caught.
So let me go back. And that first, that sounds like Dennis Prager to me, right? You know, so I've seen that line in Dennis. And let me try and kind of unpack it both in terms of Luke and you know what I've seen Prager talk about. And let me try and I think there might be a way to kind of get to a deeper place here. When I say all people are in their deepest place good, I'm not saying that all people are naturally good. Meaning, I'm not saying that a person's default position is goodness. A person's default position is not goodness. That's clear. That would be idiocy to suggest otherwise. What I was saying is that if I can kind of describe it to you, right, that the default position of a person, as the Torah says, the nature of man is evil from his youth. So the default position of a person will be, they'll do bad stuff. Right? However, right, there's a second level in which they're still basically acting out of selfish narrow interest, but society constrains them. Then there's a third level. The third level is when they've actually done work, they've done spiritual practice, right? They've trained and refined, right? Ultimately, what we call, alma de iskasia, their deepest, most essential, most profound self. What Rabbi Cook, for example, calls their essential self, their aniyatzmi. That third level is what I'm talking about. So I'm not sure that we disagree, although we may, and it's fine to disagree. At the surface level, I agree with you. The default position of a human being, oh my God, 100 million people killed. So I'm not suggesting a naive position. I'm saying if you speak to a person's deepest self, if you get beyond that, and I'll give you an example. Right? We have now incredibly tragic records, right, of how the Nazi guards felt of the camps. Right? They were devastated. They were destroyed by what they were doing. They were destroyed.
They weren't happy?
They weren't happy. They weren't happy. Right? Occasionally, I believe that, you were citing Dennis Prager. I believe that he likes to cite, if I recall correctly, I haven't looked at this stuff in years, or talked to him about it for a long time, but I believe he likes to cite the movie from Woody Allen. Right? Help me with the name of it.
Eddie Hall?
No, the one with the...
You know the one about the rabbi who goes blind?
That's right, that's exactly what...
God Has Eyes.
That's right, what's the name of the movie? Not God Has Eyes, it's called...
that's famous.
But you know what I'm talking about. And that's a movie in which, right, I think the good brother, the rabbi, goes blind.
Yes.
The bad brother, who has the woman he's having an affair with, murder, in the end kind of gets away with murder. Right? Crimes and misdemeanors? Crimes and misdemeanors. Good. Fort Gafni. Home run. Right? So he cites that as an example that actually, people are fine with doing evil. I think that's actually profoundly not right. That people actually people feel profoundly devastated, right, by doing evil. Right? People actually don't sleep well at night after they do evil. Right? And that's very rare, unless a person's a sociopath or a psychopath, which I think would agree most of the world's not. Right? A person's devastated. It's a violation of a person's integrity. So yes, a person's weakness will create a default position, right, which you described, right? That is, right, the default evil human being, level 1. Level 2, the person constrained by the laws of society. But level 3, level 3 is, oh my God, people are beautiful, Luke, at their deepest, at their most gorgeous. I mean, and then I'll pass it right back to you because I don't want to take up or monopolize the time. Can I just, with your permission, I'll probably do it without your permission, so, whatever. There's a great statement by Rabbi Cook where he says, I say it not to show that I know Hebrew, but just because I remember things better in Hebrew. He says, Amitat mahuti, mitgaleb rigei gadluti. Means the essence of who I am is revealed at my moment of greatness. So, and here's the way I would say it to you. You look for a person at their moment of flaw. You look for a person where they've messed up. And you want to freeze frame on the flaw. And you know what? You're always going to find it because everybody's flawed. Right? And we'll get back to that because I've got a few more questions for you. That's one of them. Everyone's flawed. I freeze frame on a person's moment of beauty. It's not because I'm naive. It's not because I ignore the flaw. But it's because I think the essence of a person is their gorgeousness. The essence of Luke Ford, I believe, is you at that moment, looking at Lindsay. And by the way, not with the kind of overwhelm. I could see the way you looked at her. You weren't looking at her as an object. You weren't looking at her as someone for you to conquer. You weren't looking at her with pornographic eyes. You were seeing her beauty. I literally saw it. Your face got softer, and you just looked at her, and I'm telling you, I wish we were on film then. Your whole face got soft, like you could feel your heart opening, right? And you were perceiving her beautiful divinity. Oh my God! Now what were you gaining from that, my friend? Nothing. Nothing. You were just in God's space. So if you want to ask me who I think Luke Ford really is, that's who I think Luke Ford really is. It's that gorgeous person at that moment. Now all the other stuff you do, work it out. Work it out. Okay, so what I'm going to respond. Tell me where I'm off. Correct me. Give me a different position. But have we created some resolution here?
I mean, it's cool. You gave your position, I gave mine. So.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So next question here. Next question here. So I gave you this morning, and I just want to ask your permission to repeat it, because one of our rules is that no surprises. So I gave you a kind of my psychologization. Is that a word?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I'll look for it. And I apologize before giving it, because to reduce a person to someone else's, kind of psychological analysis is not fair. And I'm sure you're infinitely more complex than this. But this is just a moment. Okay, so with your permission.
Please.
And here when I say with your permission, it's a real question. Anything you tell me now I don't want to talk about that, I'll stay away from. So what I said to Luke this morning as we were having breakfast at this great restaurant, the Oasis restaurant where I left my credit card in Salt Lake City, was that my sense was that, Luke, that somebody in your life disappointed you big time. And that this person was an authority figure, it was a mom, it was a dad, it was an uncle, it was a minister, I don't know your life. But big time, that person somehow had a kind of an Elmer Gantry kind of figure. That person had this public spiritual facade, and that you actually realized that the person was actually flawed, not only flawed, but kind of profoundly hypocritical, profoundly fake. And you can almost feel in you your rage of that person, and that basically you've kind of had a life mission to show that all these people of spirit who seem to be so, kind of elegant and beautiful, that underneath they have clay feet. And that, basically you have a kind of part of your moral code, if you will. You have a kind of moral mission to kind of expose those clay feet. Right? Is that an accurate?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of accuracy to that.
Right. So I want to throw a question at that. Okay. See, I agree. Seriously, I just remember this. I haven't thought about this in a long time. There's a verse by King Solomon which says, "Ein tzadik ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov lo yachta." There's no righteous person, right, who does good and doesn't sin. So I completely agree with you that there's no person in the world who doesn't have some clay feet. That includes you. That includes me. That includes every single person listening, right, to this dialogue, right? That's a fact of the world. People have clay feet. People are complex. That's human complexity. The question is, what does that mean about people? Right? Does that mean that people are basically bad? Does that mean they're just complex? Does that make me hate people?